New season for college basketball is tipping off on Tuesday for Arizona State, and I'm here to introduce you to your March Madness bound Sun Devils.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. You can stay in touch by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, and more importantly, welcome to college basketball season. And I know what you're thinking. Richie, ASU basketball stinks. Well, more often than not, you're right. In fact, over the last 9 years, which has all been under Bobby Hurley, ASU has only been dancing 3 times. 2 of those came before COVID. Only one of them has come within the last 4 years. In those 3 appearances, they have made it to the play-in round both times, never outright in the tournament. They are 2-1 in the first of 4 games, but they are 0-2 in the round of 64. So not quite the dancing that you would like to see. And I understand ASU basketball has never been anything elite or dynamic, but I've said many times on this show, and I will continue to say many times on this show, you are a Power 4 team. You are one of the biggest universities in the world, let alone in the country. There is no reason you shouldn't be going dancing on a near regular basis. Every year, that would be perfect, but it's not realistic. But 3 times in 9 years, that's not enough. You need to double that at least. That needs to be at least 6 times in 9 years. Well, here's the good news. ASU's basketball is trending in the right direction. There's a lot of reasons that are going that way. And like I said at the top of the show, I think we are going dancing this year. We will explore that a little later in the show. Right now, I got to introduce you to this team. Let me tell you why ASU is a much better team than they were a year ago. For starters, we've got 3 key returners. Those returners, 2 starters, which is guard Adam Miller and center Shawn Phillips. And the other may surprise you, and I don't know how many fans know who this is besides like diehards, is Bryson Long, another guard for ASU. Adam Miller, he might be the most important player on this team. I would put him no less important than like top 3. There's not many guys I would put ahead of him. He is expected to be probably your number 1 scorer this year. And last year, there were signs of him being potentially really good. He's a shooter, man. Like, live and die by his ability to pull it from 3 or his ability to shoot it anywhere else in the court. He's an exciting player. He was not overly efficient last year. He was under 40% from the field. He was just over 30% from 3. For what it's worth, he was easily your best free throw shooter. And oh my God, that needs to be drastically better last year. ASU as a team, 65.5%. It was a miserable season from the line. You need to make the points that are free. Adam Miller can do that, but that's a whole other conversation for another time. Right now, Adam Miller's a beast. I think part of the reason why he had a slow start to the season last year for the team, he played 23 games. I believe ASU had 32 games last year. That sounds correct. And unfortunately, they did, in fact, have 32 games last year. The reason why he played 9 less games is because the NCAA had initially ruled him ineligible because of their 2-time transfer policy, even though Adam Miller had a much better reason for transferring 2 times than a lot of other players did. Adam Miller wasn't hopping school to school to school. Adam Miller had initially started his career at Illinois. He missed a season with an ACL tear, so that is a redshirt year. He transfers to LSU. He plays the season at LSU and then decides to transfer to Arizona State. I understand that is two-time transfer. One of those was not because of just wanting to go to a different program. It's similar to in football, how Jake Smith and Xavier Alford were ruled ineligible. And it's like, it's not because they're jumping from school to school. It's because of outlier reasons. And that's the thing that really made me upset. But the NCAA did get it right. And they did announce that Miller was going to be eligible. He played the last 23 games. He was quality, but clearly was not 100%. That's going to change this year. Miller could easily be your number one scorer. Like I said, I think he's going to end up being no worse than one of the three most important players on this team. Shawn Phillips, he is your big man. He is the lone 7-footer on this team. That was the case last year. He dealt with some injuries throughout the year. He wasn't 100%. You're hoping that he's going to be closer this year, but he's got a big role to play. Again, he's your, no pun intended, he is your only 7-footer on this team. ASU did add a lot of size because last year, one of the problems I had with the team was they played a lot of small ball and they struggled to rebound. And it led to opponents getting second, third, fourth, fifth chances, which you just can't do. Having Phillips out there is going to really lessen those opportunities, and hopefully he can be that guy that just eats off the glass. You've got other guys as well that we're going to talk about. Phillips has a very important role for the Sun Devils this year. If he stays healthy as your big man, I would not be surprised if he was easily averaging over 20 minutes a game. There's going to be a lot of rotation there. Sorry, I'm having some Wi-Fi issues, apparently. Anyways, he only averaged 14.3 minutes a game last year. That, to me, felt a lot more to do with the injuries than anything else. So as long as he's healthy, like I said, I expect him to play 20-plus minutes a game. The other returner I wanted to mention is Bryson Long. He only appeared in 6 games last year, and it's easy to forget that he was there, but he was injured. When he was on the court, he was a sniper. He went 77.8% from deep. All of his shots last year were three-point shooting. He started the year like 6 of 6, 7 of 7, something like that. It might have even been better from 3. He is your deep shooter, and that's something that ASU is really going to need this year, is that ability to be able to have the three-point, because as we all know in today's basketball, it's live and die by the 3. ASU could not make the 3 last year. They averaged 30% as a team. You have somebody that is just, that's their specialty. Great news. You have 5 guys coming in through this transfer class. All of them, I expect, will have pretty important roles. We'll start with the forwards, Brandon Gardner and BJ Freeman. Both of those guys who are coming in are 6'8" and 6'6", respectively. Brandon Gardner was a 4-star coming out of high school. BJ Freeman is a 4-star transfer for the team. They are really important pieces because of the size that they bring. ASU did not have size last year. I don't have a spot-on number for what the average height was last year. I'd say it was easily under 6'5". Easily under 6'5". ASU brought in a lot of guys that are 6'6" and taller. And these are 2 of the guys that are going to be able to help eat those boards for you. BJ Freeman, I expect, will have a bigger role than Brandon Gardner, but we'll wait and see. 2 other guys they brought in are guards Alston Mason and Austin Nunez. The latter of the 2 is someone who is probably familiar to you, and that's because Austin Nunez, a 4-star out of high school, was originally a commit to Arizona State back in 2022-2023. He did decide to transfer in his sophomore year to Ole Miss, didn't like the fit, transfers back to ASU. Here's the thing, and the thing that I really love about this is Nunez said, paraphrasing, something along the lines of, yeah, I'm not going anywhere else. I am transferring to ASU. I'm going back to Tempe. That is my only destination. So he entered the transfer portal. He was not going anywhere else. This is a player who clearly was not happy when he left Tempe and wants to get back to a place that he was comfortable. He had a really important role as like a 6-man / 7th man for the team 2 years ago. He's going to find a similar situation this year. Alston Mason, I would not be surprised if he was a starter for you this year. He is a 4-star transfer for the team. He is 6'1", 175. I imagine he's going to fill your Frankie Collins role. Collins, of course, was the distributor for the team last year who decided to transfer to TCU for his final season of college basketball. That's fine. Do you? Mason is probably going to fill that role as the guy who runs the court and distributes the basketball. Nunez, I think he's going to fit that same role as kind of that 6-man, 7th man for you with Bryson Long. Last guy who came through the transfer portal is Bashir Jihad, 6'9", 239, listed as a center. He's a little small for center. He's definitely got the weight, though. And that's where I'm most excited for him, is someone that is going to be able to out-physical guys underneath the glass. That just, to be a broken record, ASU did not have that last year. They have it this year. And Jihad is going to be a huge part of hopefully why ASU becomes a better rebounding team this year. Hopefully he can be your Bryant Silabonge, maybe a little more efficient with the shooting. Then you have the freshman class. Whew. What a class. The best recruiting class in Sun Devil history. 3 players, which includes the highest rated recruit in the history of the program, Jayden Quaintance. Let me introduce you to Quaintance, a center from Raleigh, North Carolina. 6'9", 230 pounds. Again, a little short for center, but more than big enough. You saw in the game against Duke, the scrimmage game, which real quick, I did not do a show on that. The reason why, I didn't think there was a lot to talk about, but here's my take. Just to put it out there that I did talk about this, ASU's got a lot of work to do. They have never lost a game that big against another Power 4, Power 5 team. There's work to do. It's fine. They'll get there. I'm not worried about it. There wasn't a lot of positive to talk about in that game. Jayden Quaintance was one of the positives to talk about in that game. He's a beast. He's a stud. He is absolutely going to be one of the most important players as well. I would tell you, if it's not Adam Miller, Jayden Quaintance is the most important player on this team this year. The other 2 freshmen that are coming in, Josan Sainon, another 5-star for the team. He is a shooting guard, 6'5", 188. He is the 3rd highest rated recruit in Sun Devil history. He is already projected as a first-round pick for the 2025 NBA class. He has already said, I am one and done, and I am going pro. That is totally cool. If Josan Sainon gets us dancing this year, that's worth it. Also, just so you know, Quaintance has to play 2 years because he reclassified. So we get Quaintance for 2 years. Sainon, oh no, only 1 year. Like again, if you go dancing, I don't care. In fact, it just is more exciting when Sainon gets to be a first-round pick and we get to be like, yeah, ASU product, look at him. It's exciting. And then you have Amir Ali, who is a 4-star from Canyon International Academy out in Glendale. Local kid, 4-star, small forward, 6'8", 175. When ASU brought in Jayden Quaintance, their recruiting class changed quite a bit. They had 4 commits, I believe. 3 of them left. Ali was the one who stayed. And Ali, I don't know how big his role is going to be this year, but what I do know is wanting to stay, wanting to be a part of this movement, even in what you expect is probably going to be a smaller role. That's awesome to see. You also would assume he's probably going to be a pretty big fixture of the future for this team, because a lot of these transfers that are coming in don't have much more eligibility. I don't know how many guys have more than like 2 years left. Austin Nunez, I know, has 1 million years, but the rest of the guys, I'm not sure. Ali could be a fixture for the future. One last thing I want to bring up before we go ahead and talk about expectations for this team is the starting 5 that we had against Duke. I took this from Sun Devil Source. I know it was probably reported all over the place. The starting 5 that we had were Alston Mason and Adam Miller at guard, BJ Freeman and Jayden Quaintance as your forwards, and Shawn Phillips as your center. Absolutely no surprises there. I would anticipate That's probably going to be your starting five to start the year. The only ones I could see making a case, like I could see Joson Seinon pushing for starting time. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year he was at that point. I don't know if it's going to be before that. Otherwise, I think that's probably your set lineup. Coming up next on the show, expectations for this team. Where are you expecting to be? What are we hoping to do this year? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets easier to see your favorite teams play live. Game Time Picks, they're going to filter out all the fluff and show you only incredible deals on great seats, and that way you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The curation makes it easier to save money, not just on sports, but also on concerts, comedy events, theater, and more. Their all-in pricing feature, you get to toggle it. It'll show the total up front. There are no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, too. That way you know what to expect when you arrive. The lowest price guarantee, which is absolutely the best feature of Game Time, is they're going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less than what Game Time has. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Wherever you're getting your shows, like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get that update whenever we post new content. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Let's go ahead and talk about expectations for Sun Devils basketball this year. We'll start with this. The expectations from the media are pretty low. They're not as low as they were for football, believe it or not. Where football was picked to finish 16th in the Big 12, I found ASU was picked to finish around 11th, which is okay. It's not super disrespectful. It's probably a fair expectation for a team that's coming off a losing season and has only been dancing one time in the last 4 years. Technically in the last 5, but 2019, 2020, the dance was canceled and ASU was going dancing that year. So it's tough. And 11th isn't bad. You're also talking about playing in the best basketball conference in college in the nation, with Arizona, with Kansas, with Houston, Baylor, you name it. I mean, they are going to dominate college basketball this year. So ASU, yeah, it's going to be pretty easy to get lost in the mix. ASU could be a surprise team, though. We talked about all that talent that's coming in. That is a great transfer class. That is an elite recruiting class. That recruiting class is actually 7th overall, 9th overall composite ranking. Transfer was only 61, but I mean, you brought in 4 players. 2 of them are 4-star transfers. 2 of them are 4 stars coming out of high school. I like the transfer class. I love the freshman class. You don't return a lot of superstars per se, and it's going to be a new look team. Last year, you had 4 transfers that were starting in your lineup. You did that the year before too. It wasn't ideal. ASU's returners this year, you have 2 guys who are projected to be starters from last year's team. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of new faces from the recruiting class and the transfer class, but I feel a lot more confident about this group than I did last year, especially with guys like Quaintance. That's a game changer, man. I want to say he was like the 7th overall recruit in the nation. He was certainly top 15 at worst. This kid's a superstar. And whether he does play center or power forward, he's a difference maker on the court. He's physical. He's strong. He can shoot the ball. He's able to drive the lane. Hopefully he's going to eat off the glass and be one of the most productive rebounders on this team. That's a low bar. Last year, Frankie Collins was your lead rebounder. He is 6'1". He's not even with the team anymore. So someone needs to step up. I assume it'll be Shawn Phillips, but would not be surprised if Quaintance took that role. This is a good team. I won't say this is the best team that Bobby Hurley has ever fielded, because you had that team with Remy Martin and Kamani Lawrence a few years ago. You had even 2022-23, Frankie Collins, the Cambridge brothers, Warren Washington. They've had some good teams. This is a really exciting team, and a team that could end up really capturing headlines here with all of the new faces and potential superstars on this team. It's also year 10, for Bobby Hurley. He is searching desperately for I want to say conference every time, a tournament win. And I don't know why I want to say conference. He is, the 3 times that they have been dancing, I can't remember if I mentioned this earlier or not. I had to record this twice, fun fact, because my internet went out in the middle of the first one. So this is the second take for you guys. I may have said this in the first one. I don't remember if I said this time around, but ASU has only been to the tournament 3 times in 9 years under Hurley. They were supposed to go to 4. And honestly, if COVID doesn't happen, I don't think ASU struggles as much after that point in time. Hurley had 3 consecutive 21 seasons. They were building something. But in the 3 times that he has been to the tournament, they were play-in appearances all 3 times. They were 2-1 in that first of 4. They are 0-2, 2-1 and 0-2 in round of 64. They've never had a win in the actual bracket itself. That has to change this year. This is a Sun Devils team that I understand we're not a powerhouse or anything like that, and we never have been, and I'm not expecting us to turn into one. But ASU should go dancing more often than not. 3 years out of 9 is not nearly enough. That needs to be at least doubled. You need to be dancing 6 out of 9 times, 6 out of 10 times. I'd say that's fair. 60% of the time out of a decade, that's more than fair for a Power 4, Power 5 program that's one of the biggest universities in the world, let alone in the nation. Now the NIL is coming in. That's another thing I want to talk about too. And, we'll go ahead and translate over to that. This recruiting is going crazy right now, and it's only going to get better. ASU, they are hot on the trail for Koa Pete next year. A local kid out of Gilbert, I believe Perry High School. And first of all, his brother is on the football team. Pretty cool. He is a top 5 recruit in the nation. ASU is one of the favorites to land his services, and a big part of that is because of the amount of progress they are making recruiting. Bobby Hurley has always been a good recruiter. ASU has been behind the sticks when it came to NIL. That is changing. This Valley is activated. A big reason for that is Kenny Dillingham getting the football program back on track and just calling out fans to say, you know what, you got to come support these players, this team. They need you guys more than ever. And the Valley has responded. The NIL is there now. And Bobby Hurley also did a docuseries that's coming out with Netflix. I'm not sure when it's out. I don't think it's out yet. I know that much. And that's going to bring in a couple $1 million that's going to go towards the NIL. I know Joson Sainon just signed a contract, I believe, with Adidas that's going to bring in money for the NIL too. They're generating money right now. And with their ability to compete with some of the other programs that can throw some money around, like Baylor, like Kansas, like Houston, Arizona, that are all in your conference, by the way. This is the best conference in college basketball. You have a chance to be able to finally get to a point where you can start bringing in the best players on a consistent basis and get to a point where you're dancing more often than not. And again, ASU has to go dancing this year. To me, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Anything less than a March Madness appearance is a failure of a season. Now, if you make it and you don't win in the round of 64, that's frustrating. I still would not call that a failure of a season, because you just flat out have not gone dancing in a long time. You had the 1 year in 2022, 2023. Before that was 2018 and 2019. You don't go to the tournament enough. That's got to change. If Hurley gets him to the tournament this year, that's great. And then the expectation next year turns into we need to go dancing and we need to win at least one game. That's the expectations we have this year. next up. And to round out the podcast, I'm going to tell you why you should buy in on the Sun Devils this year. I'm not just talking about, like, oh, this is kind of cool, maybe I'll tune in. No, I am telling you why you should be going to games, why you should be watching games religiously, and why you should be rooting on ASU like you have never rooted them on before. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One last time, wherever you're getting your shows, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and you'll get that update when we post new content. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Let's wrap up this show. Why should you buy in for ASU basketball? Well, let's start with the literal buying into this program. NIL is catching up, and it's going to provide ASU a big-time opportunity to take that leap forward and go from a middling program to a consistently competitive program. Again, I am not expecting ASU to suddenly become a title contender. You know what I want? I want to go to the Sweet 16. That's what I want. I want to have a Cinderella run. It would be cool to win a national championship. It'd be super cool. It's not realistic within the next 2 years, within the next 3 years, probably within the next 5 years. Could ASU get there? Sure. I don't see why not. I mean, the NIL's there. Bobby's a great recruiter. You're in the best conference in college basketball. There's all sorts of stuff that's going for you. But for this year, this is just a really talented team. And it's do or die time for Bobby Hurley. This is the year. He's got to be able to put it together. I don't think he gets fired at the end of the year if they have a losing record. I don't think ASU is ready to part ways with Bobby Hurley. I mean, he'd have to win like less than 10 games for them to can him. If he's around what he did last year, which was 14 and 18, I just don't know that that's enough to move on from him. Maybe that makes you mad. Maybe you understand, but this is a year where Bobby Hurley is going to feel the fire underneath his chair. And I think it's going to turn into a very good season for the team. And this is also just a super talented team, man. Jayden Quaintance alone makes this a must-watch season. And next year, too, like I said, he's got to play 2 years because he reclassified. He's only 17 years old. Man, ASU, they might have something special here with Quaintance. And Stae Sun, even for 1 year, Stae Sun can do a lot of things for you. He can be a really good player. He can put ASU back on the map. He goes in the first round. That's going to drive in recruits. They're going to be like, wow, ASU's getting guys in the first round again? Why wouldn't I go to ASU? And there's opportunities at ASU for me to play immediately. There's opportunities at ASU for me to make a little bit of money through the NIL. There's opportunities at ASU to play under Bobby Hurley. And say what you want about Bobby Hurley, that's a player's coach. It's someone that these young kids gravitate to. They want to play for Hurley. It's a great situation. Hurley's seat's on fire. This is a great recruiting class. The NIL is finally catching up, but perhaps most importantly of all, it's a new start. It's a new beginning for ASU. You are no longer in the Pac-12. Welcome to the Big 12, the conference for college basketball. And to make something very clear, you are definitively in the lower half of the basketball conference right now. You're picked to win or finish 11th in the conference. At the start of the year, that is more than fair. It's not like in football where you were finished to pick 16th and you're like, that's a little BS. You're picked to finish 11th in the conference in college basketball. That's not a bad thing. That wouldn't be a bad finish in year one if we're being completely transparent. Hopefully you're better, but it's a brand new start. You are going to have tons of opportunities to have much better game times. It's not going to be pitch black outside on the East Coast when guys are going to bed because it's school night. They're going to be able to stay up and watch ASU basketball because the tip-off's not going to be at 10 o'clock at night for them. ASU has a ton of opportunities now that they are in the Big 12. We said that for football. It's the same here. You also are going up against the best competition in college basketball. Did I mention that? I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Did I mention that this is the best conference in college basketball? Because it feels like something that's really important to bring up. So let me bring it up again. This is the best conference for college basketball in the nation. You're going to be playing against Houston, Baylor, Kansas, Arizona, any other teams that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. No disrespect. My apologies. I think Cincinnati's got a really good team. I think Cincinnati's got a good team. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I mean, no disrespect. You find a way to win a couple of those games. ASU is 2-0 all time against Kansas. Fun fact. They've won in Lawrence. They've done it once when they were the number one team. ASU went to Lawrence and beat them. I don't know. Maybe you just continue that streak and you go 4-0 this year. Maybe you can split the Territorial Cup Series with Arizona. Maybe you can sneak past Houston. You get big-time profile wins like that, people are going to take notice. Recruits are going to take notice. They're going to say something's getting built here. Bobby Hurley's been there a long time. NIL is coming to fruition. Recruiting is coming up. The fans are getting invested now. Everything is lining up for ASU basketball to get better and better and better and better and better. And now you're center stage. If there was ever a time to buy into ASU basketball, ladies and gentlemen, it's now. It is now. Bobby Hurley is cooking with gas. This program is ready to explode. I don't know if it's this year. I do think you need to go dancing this year. My expectation, my personal expectation, get to the tournament. If you lose in a round of 64, that sucks. But you know what? You're back in that landscape. That would be 2 times in the last 3 years that you've made the tournament. I said you should be going about 60% of the time. That's 67% of the time. Perfect. That's what I want. The wins will come. Hopefully this year. If not, then just be patient. But this is the year to start getting really invested. Because if this year goes well, you're going to start stacking together really big years. You're going to start getting big-time recruits. Hopefully, Koa Pete decides to stay home. But it's not just Pete. There's a lot of guys that could potentially look at ASU. Local guys across the country. ASU, they're right there, man. They have a chance to take such a drastic step forward as a basketball program. And I think this is the year it starts. What do you guys think? Are you ready to buy in on ASU basketball? Am I crazy? Who are you most excited about? And why is it Jayden Quaintance? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter as well at Richie Bradshaw36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and you will get an update whenever we post new content. Stay in touch by following me on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our first podcast for college basketball of the new season, and it will not be our last. Now is the time to subscribe to Locked On Sun Devils as we continue to get you through the remainder of football season and we tip off the new basketball season. We're going to have tons of content available for you guys. By the way, if you did not see earlier this morning, we have an episode out for college football as we break down the final 5 games of the ASU 2024 football season. Are they going to win more games than they're going to lose? Spoiler alert, I have them going 3-2. But if you want to find out more about what I think of those games, and I know you do, go ahead and check out that show. Tomorrow, we will be previewing ASU versus Oklahoma State, and I will see you there. And until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.